Hey guys, it's Josh from the Review Brothers here, and today I'm going to be reviewing Dave Franco's directorial debut, The Rental. Now, this is directed by Dave Franco, and it's written by Dave Franco and Joe Swanberg. It stars Dan Stevens, who's been incomparably amazing throughout this summer of this pandemic. He's been in a lot of films that I've seen. And he's done really good in most of them. I still got to talk about Eurovision, and I will get to it. But I wanted to cover this because Dave Franco is a decent actor. And he is also James Franco's little brother. And honestly, I think he's a better director than James. Apart from The Disaster Artist, which is in a league of its own, because that's A24 and they know what they're doing. And on top of that, his direction wasn't anything special. The script was what made that film better. And the acting was really good. But I think James Franco needs to stick to acting, and I honestly think Dave Franco needs to continue to get behind the camera, because in Act 1 of this film, I was enjoying it. Act 1's really good. It sets up a lot of different things. It's nothing special, obviously, but it sets up a lot of different things, and it's not offensive in any way, in the context that it doesn't insult your intelligence. It's nothing too, it's not something that you're going to get upset having to watch. It's not something that's a chore to get through. It's not necessarily even that horribly paced. I think that the problem is just tone. And with horror, you have to imbalance tone properly. And if you don't balance the tone properly, and you imbalance it, and it doesn't work, it can create a mess. And that's exactly what happens with The Rental. It becomes a mess. Act 1 is really solid. There's a lot of tension. They're setting up these different things. But it feels like once they hit Act 2 and Act 3, they didn't know where to go anymore. And it just kind of comes off as a bunch of people arguing for the rest of the remainder of the film. And there's not a lot of horror aspects going on. They tease a lot of things early on. They tease different ideas that could come in later, but they don't. And then, the last 15 to 10 minutes, you get a generic slasher film. And honestly, that kind of upset me, because we went from a solid romantic drama with lots of different relationships going on that were quite interesting, and at best, at least, decent acting, with, again, the standout performance being Dan Stevens, in my opinion, and Alison Brie is always good. And then you have some decent dialogue, too. Nothing to write home about, but nothing, that made me cringe or anything that would make me want to stop watching the film. Nothing that took me out of it or made me feel like, oh, this doesn't feel, real to me. It didn't feel real to me at all, but at the same point, it didn't also feel like I don't know how to explain it. It's hard to explain. The way the film's dialogue goes is it tries to be naturalistic, but then it causes, me to just know that I'm watching a film because of how stilted some of it was. There's times where the dialogue's very naturalistic and very free-flowing, and you don't really feel like you're watching a film. And then there's times when the dialogue is stilted and disjointed, and I know I'm watching a film. And it kind of took me out of it. That being said, like I said, Act 1, pretty solid. Very much so, setting up a lot of different things. The problem is, by the time Act 2 and Act 3 hit, those things that were set up don't really pay off well. And a lot of the stuff that they set up is actually red herrings, because they believe they have this clever ending that has actually been done 100 times before. And so The Rental is nothing special. It is your typical modern horror, and not the good kind, the in the middle, I can't tell whether I like this or not kind. And is it as bad as something like a Truth or Dare or a Fantasy Island? No, it's not. But it's definitely not an Invisible Man or a Midsummer. And if you're expecting that, you're not going to get that. If you want something like a decent horror film that can entertain you for the most part, and isn't too in your face about one particular thing, or is at least competently made, this is the film for you, I guess. I don't know. I believe that The Rental is just a disjointed mess in certain places, but also shows promise for a young director who I think still has a future later on in this industry and possibly could get better. Again, this is his first film. I'm not gonna like say that, you know, he's terrible. He's not. He had his moments, and as a director, I think Dave Franco still has a future. I hope it's not in the genre of horror, though, as I don't think this is his genre. I could be wrong. You could prove me wrong on the next one, but I really don't think at this point in time that Dave Franco's genre is horror. The romantic drama aspect of this film was the most entertaining. I think he needs to focus his efforts on in that category, because the way he developed relationships in this film had me enjoying that aspect of the film. And the acting is a huge part of why those relationships work. The casting works pretty well. Like I said, the acting's nothing but serviceable to maybe decent, but it's still enough. It's enough to where they write these characters to be semi-likable, and then by the time, again, you get to the next two acts, they do all of the good service that they put themselves in, and all of the tension building, they undercut it. They undercut everything they built up in Act 1, in Act 2 and 3. And that's a problem, because now I don't care. So, overall, The Rental, again, isn't anything special. But for his first directorial debut, Dave Franco's The Rental isn't bad, but it isn't good either. And you get something in the middle between good and bad. And so this film's a mixed bag to me. And what I'm going to give this film is a 5.5 out of 10. It's not enough for a 6, and it's not enough for a 6.5 to even a 7, 7.5. It's a 5.5 out of 10. It's straight down the middle. It's between bad and good, and I can't, even on a second watch, I'm leaning more towards the 6 than I am a 5, but right now it's in the middle with a 5.5 out of 10, because I didn't see enough in this film to where I'm willing or comfortable to give it a full-on 6. I think it's mediocre. I personally think that he could have done better. Of course, this is his first directorial debut. He'll get better. That being said, this isn't it. There's a lot missing, and there's a lot of genericness in this film. There's so much generic things that happen. I've seen a lot of what was on screen before done better, and that's just the truth of it all. We're in an era where horror has been done to death. There's so many horror films, and they all try to do something groundbreaking and new, but no one can do anything groundbreaking or new because almost everything's been done before. So you either have to do it in a way that no one's ever seen before, or in a stylistic way that everyone likes, or you have to balance tone properly. Honestly, this film suffers the most because it doesn't balance its tone. If it was able to balance the tone better, and it was able to keep that tension from Act 1 going all the way to Act 3, to the ending, I would say this film's great. But it doesn't. The tone shifts completely in Act 2 and 3, and it changes genres in a way that's not seamless at all, to where you completely takes you out of the film and puts you in a whole nother film, and it tries to do it seamlessly, and it doesn't. It just doesn't. I found myself bored halfway through this thing, and it was a very sluggish race to the end. I was very bored by the end, and I really didn't care about any of these characters by the time the credits rolled. And their ambitious setup of an ending for a potential sequel to a possible next film, to trying to, oh, we're smarter than you, and wow, look at this. It doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. And honestly, I would have preferred a different ending. The ending kind of soured the entire experience for me. At that point, before the credits rolled, I went, okay, this is a generic slasher. It's not too bad, like 5.5 out of 10, right? And then they tried to go with the ambitious ending, and I didn't know how to feel about it. I'm like, okay, maybe it's decent. And then by the time the credits fully rolled, after that, 4 minutes of setting up possibly a sequel, I'm like, no, it didn't work. It didn't work because I didn't care enough. I didn't care enough because the tone checks out in Act 2 and 3, and the characters become completely different and even worse, and you, like, in Act 1, I liked your characters. In Act 2 and 3, I start to hate them. They're so annoying. And I mean all of them. I don't know. It's just... It just wasn't what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting much, but I wasn't expecting what I got either. And personally, with this mixed bag, I don't recommend that you check out The Rental. The only reason I would recommend you check out The Rental is if you're, one, a fan of Dave Franco, and two, if you really want to see the first act of this film and see how Dave Franco does have a future in this business. I still think he does have promise as a young director. I just think this wasn't the genre for him to test the waters. Anyways, guys, we're going to be having some reviews coming up this week. Palm Springs is coming. Relic is coming. First Cow is coming. And Eurovision is coming. Anyways, guys, this has been Josh from the Review Brothers. Peace.